nature lover, man lover, beautiful lady, free spirit, a deadly serious interview with Vanessa Bell.
So tell me, Vanessa, when were you born, and what kind of upbringing did you have?
I was born on the 30th of May, 1879 in Hyde Park Gate in the centre of London. I was the eldest of four, a position of which led me to a great deal of responsibility in my adolescent years upon mother's death. Father was quite demanding that I keep the house for the family, something I rather struggled with, trying to balance domestication alongside my artistic interests. Virginia and I would describe this arduous manner of his as an emotionally demanding regime. Yet he would encourage us to pursue our interests, allow us free rein in the fields of education and artistic ambition.
Now, how old were you at the start of the Great War?
I was 35 when the war was first announced.
And what were you doing before the outbreak of war?
Oh, I had joined my dear friend Roger Fry a year before to form the Omega Workshop, which I was still participating in before the war.
And what was the Omega Workshop exactly?
It was an experimental design collective held in London, where we merged avant-garde with domestic design, rugs inspired by cubism, painted textiles, ceramics and furniture. The colours were bold, the patterns dynamic.
What did you do during the Great War?
During 1916, I moved from Bloomsbury to Charleston, Firle in Sussex, with my two sons and Duncan Grant, along with his lover, David Bunny Garnett, in hopes that Duncan could avoid conscription, working as a farm labourer. I was part of the NCF, the Non-Conscription Fellowship, at this time, encouraging men to refuse conscientious motives to bear arms, to their belief that human life is sacred, a motive that unfortunately took the life of my son.
So, Charleston, what was it like as a home?
It was most lovely. It was true living. The pond there was most lovely, with a willow tree by its side. Duncan and I were quick to select our studios as soon as we had moved in. The house seemed so full of young people in very high spirits, laughing a great deal at their own jokes. The house was art. Walls, fireplaces, door panels, ceramics, Omega fabrics and furniture worked in harmony with all our paintings. But the gardens were indeed most charming. The whole affair, it made people rather stunned, rejecting the bourgeoisie, and why couldn't we? Why could we not paint our house a different colour? Why could we not dress differently? Why could we not have different kinds of sexual relations? It was breaking all the rules and giving one sense of validation, free thinking.
What did you do in the years immediately following the end of the Great War?
The early 20s were rather hushed with my work and with my home. Duncan and I visited France and Italy quite regularly, working on decorative projects with one another. We found a great joy in the quality of light surrounding the areas of both countries, and often shared in painting the same scenes and subjects. It was during this period that my work lost its flamboyant image. Colours dulled, the brushwork became tighter, and thus I reverted to a reminiscent state of naturalism. Perhaps this mirrored the dulling closeness of mine and Duncan's relations. In 1922, I had my first solo exhibition, featuring 27 of my pieces at the Independent Gallery.
Who were your greatest artistic comrades in the years following the Great War? Did they influence any of your work as an artist?
Duncan Grant. He was a man I took great pleasure in painting beside. I held a deep affection for him. We spent many days painting companionably by one another's side for a short while. Though we were no longer lovers, Duncan would be painting. I'd be sitting in my room with the door open between us. Our art could have at one time been considered our own union, admiring one another's work yet criticising our efforts. We both experienced a great deal of change in our work together, a rather intimate affair on all accounts. Colours that what made us excitable had quietened down, which, I suppose, was a result of us attempting to change everything into colour. It was considering the matter of how we could keep the intensity without losing the solidity of objects and the surrounding space. Another close comrade of mine was my dear friend Roger Fry, with whom I wrote to often. He introduced me to what he liked to label post-impressionist art, as well as abstract, and inspired me to produce works like abstract painting. He encouraged that I experiment with technique alongside bold and vivid colouring in my work that emphasised form over content. As Virginia expressed, they give us emotion. They offer a puzzle.
Who else influenced you in your work as an artist?
My earlier works were influenced by the Impressionist painters Sargent and Whistler and was characterised by restrained naturalism. My methods were the same to Whistler, only he painted rather thinly, never starting with the right colours first and most likely starting with monochrome, which is probably how he got his pleasing surfaces. This was something I just couldn't get myself to do. I could never paint thinly enough, and in sketching I'm unsure if it was entirely possible to achieve. However, once Roger joined our Bloomsbury Circle in 1910, my influences were directed towards, as I mentioned earlier, abstract artists, such as Picasso and Brask, experimenting with colour and technique to emphasise the form of the piece quite dramatically, using blocks of colour to build on my designs.
Which art movement did you feel most attached to during the 1920s?
At the end of the Great War, my work returned to its known naturalistic workings. I held a great deal of favour towards figurative art by that time. It allowed me to explore and celebrate the solidity and vividness of the natural world. I applied myself to landscapes, still life, and interiors with figures in them, doing considerably less work with formal portraiture. My style never quite drastically changed from this point onward.
And out of all you've done, what do you believe your legacy will be?
I believe my legacy will be challenge in both art and livelihood. I shall leave behind the unconventional and hope it will be named progressive, as I have explored my life and in art in adventurous ways. My legacy will be the beginnings of extractivism in extractivism. My legacy will be the beginnings of right, this would be a separate sentence.